Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Run in the Paint recap. We are back after day two of the NBA play-in tournament. Last night, we had both of the 9-10 play-in games for both conferences, and well, let's just say neither of them were that eventful. We kind of had the same outcome in both of these games, so let's get right into it. We had a couple teams eliminated in their season end last night. First, we'll start with the first game of the night from the Eastern Conference, where the Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls played in Chicago. This was a game that I was honestly really looking forward to. I thought that it would be super fun to see how these two different styles would kind of play in the same type of game in this type of atmosphere in Chicago. Winner go home scenario where the Chicago Bulls had been one of the hottest teams in the NBA over the last 20 games, 15-5 in their last 20 going into this game. Second fastest pace in the NBA. And then you have a Miami Heat team that's been very up and down since the Jimmy Butler trade, coming in at the fourth slowest pace in the league. So these two different styles, I was very curious to see how they would play. And really, this entire game was played with the road team's pace. The Miami Heat came into Chicago, and it was a dominant performance. They took this one 109-90, and it was just dominant from the very start, from the opening tip. You could tell the Heat just came out with a focus that was just noticeable, from the start. I mean, this was an old-fashioned Eric Spoelstra Miami Heat defensive masterclass across the board. With what I was saying about the Bulls being so hot recently because of how fast they've been playing, I mean, the Miami Heat, they did their scouting report. I mean, they came in right to start this game, and the number one key to the game for them to start defensively was no matter what, off makes or misses, or if you turn the ball over, get back on defense because Chicago loves to run and score. Not in the half court. They struggled to score in the half court against the Heat defense, as we saw throughout this game, and the Bulls really didn't get that many fast break opportunities. They only scored 13 fast break points in the game. Miami had 14. And again, it just started right from the opening tip. It didn't really feel like the Bulls recognized that this was a winner go home game. Well, I believe this was a wire to wire win for Miami. They were up double digits nearly from the beginning. And it was really disappointing. I was very disappointed by Chicago's effort to start the game, and then in that second quarter, it got worse. They were down by 24 points at halftime just because of for the Heat defense, the Bulls were not able to really get many things going. But then on the Heat side of things, offensively, Tyler Hero, man, oh my goodness. He continued his sensational season, was an all-star, first-time all-star, probably the only consistent piece for the Heat all season long with all the turbulence and the drama off the court. Tyler Hero was the only consistent piece all season long, and man, he continued that in this game. He was a perfect 8 for 8 from the field in the first half, made his first 8 shots, finished the game with 38 points on 13 for 19 shooting, 3 of 7 from 3 and 9 for 10 at the line. Besides 7 turnovers, he had a fantastic game. I mean, this is exactly what the Miami Heat needed, and their other guys that supported Tyler Hero played very well on the road as well. Andrew Wiggins, I thought, had a massive game on the defensive end, guarding guys like Kobe White and Josh Giddey, not allowing them to get going. Bam Adebayo had an okay game. I think Bam could definitely have better games going forward. And then off the bench, Davion Mitchell. I was a huge fan of the acquisition that of Davion Mitchell when he was acquired in the crazy 5-6 team Jimmy Butler trade, and he's been playing great for the Heat since the trade. And in this game, he was fantastic. He had 15 points and 9 assists, and he didn't miss a shot. I mean, his nickname is Off Night for a reason, and he's been trying to find that consistent role in the league. And I think Miami. Hopefully, this is a place where he sticks because he fits perfectly in with Heat culture because of the defense, and I think he has offensive potential as well. He's a very good ball handler. The jump shot looks pretty good, and he can play out a pick and roll. So I think that he could definitely be a big piece for them going forward. And you saw why in this game how big he could be for that team. So really, it was the first half, and I think the first quarter that really was the difference in this game because Chicago just did not come out with the energy that I expected them to come out with in this type of scenario. Win or go home. You're out. You're on your home floor at the United Center. You haven't hosted this type of game. Or no, they hosted the 9-10 playing game last year. But I just thought that they would come in with more energy. Um, I it seemed like they just figured we've been playing so hot. The Heat probably just want this season to be over. And we're at home as well. We're just going to be able to come in and just be better. We're just going to win. We took care of business in the regular season against this team. We're just going to come in and win, and that is just not what happened. It was a very disappointing performance by the Bulls. Um, they had a little bit of a run in the third quarter. Um, they played better defensively. They only allowed 17 points in the third quarter, or actually 38 in the entire second half. But Chicago just couldn't really get much going. I mean, the problem is when you're down by 24 at halftime, you can't like when you're trying to make a comeback like that, in any game, not just an elimination game, not only do you have to get back to playing up to the level of the team that you are playing against, you need to then play like 5 times better at least than what you were playing before. Because honestly, in the second half, the Bulls played an even game with the Miami Heat. The score was 43-38, Chicago in the second half. It was low scoring. It was ugly. No one could really score. Um, but the problem was Chicago, they were finally playing better, but they had dug themselves in such a big hole that they needed to put themselves up to like 10 tiers higher than what they were actually playing, than the level they were playing in the first half, if that makes any sense. So Miami advances to the game on Friday night to face the Atlanta Hawks for a right to make the playoffs and face Cleveland. Um, but before we move on from just this, dominating performance, I do want to talk about what Chicago should be looking at going forward because this was, a bit of an interesting season. Going in, they kind of had the year that we probably all expected. Coming in with Zach Levine and Nikola Vucevic. I mean, the main goal this season, roster wise, was to try and trade Zach Levine and Vucevic, so they could finally go young and start to build for the draft and be in the lottery and all that. Well, the first half, because that was their goal to basically just showcase Levine and Vucevic, they were, Levine and Vucevic were playing great, but they were playing well enough to where they were also still winning games, while all these other teams in the Eastern Conference were like, all right, we just want to tank this season out. That is our agenda. So you got teams like the Wizards, we knew they wanted to tank immediately. The Nets kind of had a similar um, plan that the Bulls had. They just ended up trading their top guys earlier than the Bulls did. The Bulls traded Levine right at the deadline. The Nets started trading guys like Schroeder and Finney Smith like months before. And you have like the Raptors had that goal coming into the season. The Hornets that quickly ended up being their goal, and the Sixers, with all the injuries, they ended up being in the lottery as well. So the Bulls kind of fell behind in this sort of lottery race. So by the time they were eventually able to trade Levine to get their own first round pick back and then some, contracts and guys that did eventually play. Kevin Herter did fit the Bulls starting lineup going forward in the second half. But while they were able to fulfill that goal, they had kind of already set themselves behind in the second half of the season. So to their credit, they were like, all right, let's push this thing forward. Let's just go out and win and see how we play, with this kind of new look roster with the ball in Josh Giddey's hands more now that Levine has been traded, and it turned into a very solid basketball team. Like I said, they were 15-5 in the last 20 games of the regular season, um, playing at the second fastest pace in the league. They changed their identity. Vucevic had a very good season. The goal this offseason, roster wise, is most likely to get him off the roster. He is going to be, next season, he is on the final year of his contract. He'll be making $21.5 million. There are actually going to be a lot of Bulls players on the final year of their deal. Kevin Herter, Zach Collins, Kobe White is also going to be on the final year of his little rookie extension there. We'll see if they give him any more money. But besides trading off Vucevic, it's going to be to pay Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey is a restricted free agent, and although he had a bit of a questionable start to the season there with Chicago, the way he ended it, nearly putting up a 20-point triple double per game after the All Star break, and shooting a career high from three. I mean, he was a very serviceable player and flat out one of the best players in the entire NBA after the All Star break. So he deserves to get paid just off of that sample size, in my personal opinion. The Bulls need to pay him, and they need to trade Vucevic. Now, where could they? Where is that partner to get Nikola Vucevic to a different team? I'm not really sure. I mean, during the season, I thought that the LA Lakers and the Golden State Warriors would be the best fits because obviously the Lakers need a center still. Um, Although, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. They've been playing great defensively with Jackson Hayes there starting, but I would think that they would want an actual, all-star caliber center there, even just like to space the floor perimeter shooting. But I wouldn't blame them if they didn't want Vucevic, especially if the Lakers perform super well in this playoff run. And then honestly, the same thing could go for Golden State, although I think Golden State would be a great fit because we've seen this season with their rookie Quentin Post how much of a great dynamic it was for the Warriors that they would have a guy that can space the floor at 7 feet tall and also grab rebounds, at the other end, just space the floor for Steph Curry. Post shot 41% from three, but they've also been able to go small recently with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green as that little small front court here going into the playoffs. Um, and Quentin Post is a guy that was converted to a standard NBA deal for the playoffs because he played so well. But he'll be on. I mean, he's on a bargain. I mean, if you're asking, like, would I rather pay Vucevic the $21 million to be a floor spacer, maybe a playmaker and a post threat, or pay $2 million to someone who can do the same things? I mean, as far as shooting the ball and rebounding and that sort of thing, Warriors would probably want to keep. They would probably prefer to just pay post. You don't really have to pay Vucevic all that money. So for the Bulls, I mean, it's going to be tough to find a partner, but I think they could certainly do it. Maybe it's even to a lesser team that could buy him out or something, and then Vucevic finds a place to go compete. But overall, the Bulls, okay. I mean, this is probably the season that we all expected, right? I mean, for them to end up in the play-in, and then lose in the play-in tournament. It's just unfortunate that after the way they finished the regular season, that they really didn't put up any sort of fight against a inconsistent Miami Heat team. But all the credit goes to the Heat for putting on a defensive masterclass in this game. That was very, very impressive. Again, they move on to face the Atlanta Hawks, 7 o'clock on, I believe it's TNT. I have that wrong on the graphic there. Um, for the right to get the 8th seed, head to the playoffs, and face Cleveland in the first round of the playoffs. Moving on to the Western Conference game, kind of more of the same in this one, but this was actually one that I kind of expected to happen with the Dallas Mavericks beating the Sacramento Kings 120 to 106. This was a game that actually was great in the first quarter. It was back and forth. There were a ton of lead changes. There were like 10 lead changes in the first 14, 15 minutes of the game. Both teams were coming out hot, playing well on both ends, to some extent. The Kings had a 2-point lead at the end of the first quarter, and then in the second quarter, it was all Mavericks, man. All Mavericks. The combination of the size inside and Clay Thompson going vintage mode in the second quarter just blew the game open for Sacramento. They turned the game into from a 2-point deficit after the first quarter to a 23-point halftime lead in one quarter. And Clay Thompson had 15 to 16 points in the second quarter, nailed off four threes, and that was just amazing to see after, the 0 for 10 playing game with that he had for Golden State last year in Sacramento. Comes into this game and just again was a huge difference maker on the offensive end because Dallas was getting a whole bunch of stops. And you can get a bunch of stops, but it doesn't matter if you don't convert on the other end. And Clay Thompson converted a whole lot of threes in transition and in the half court for the Dallas Mavericks. And that's really what blew the game open in the second quarter. And the Kings just couldn't really recover. I mean, Anthony Davis started taking over in the third quarter with his jump shot. And then of course defensively as well. And then just throughout the game, anytime that the Kings would try to make some sort of push, whether it was DeMar DeRozan with his mid-range fadeaways, Levine with a few threes. I mean, those two were the only ones that really had it going offensively. So anytime they tried to make a run, Dallas just had an answer. PJ Washington had 17 points. He had a huge game, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, couple steals. Great defense. He didn't shoot the ball the best. Anthony Davis didn't shoot it the best. But again, those bigs were so important. And this is why Dallas made the trade, trading away Luka Doncic. I know that obviously does not look like it was a good trade, and I'm one of the few people out there that actually understood and still kind of understand the trade from Nico Harrison's perspective and why they would do it. I wouldn't have done it myself, but I still understand why they did do it. It was for this exact reason where you have 3 to 4 bigs that can play, all together, or at least three at a time since PJ Washington can play the three, and then you just rotate between him, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford. And that size had a huge impact on the Kings, and specifically Domantas Sabonis, who didn't really have a good game. I mean, 11 points, 13 boards, 5 assists. He couldn't really finish inside because of all the size that the Mavericks provided. And then the Mavs, perimeter defenders just did a good job against them as well. They're a big team. So even guys like Najee Marshall to start the game and Klay Thompson, and then guys coming in like Exum, Christie, Caleb Martin, good defenders that make things difficult. And that's why Sacramento wasn't really able to get it going. And that's why they turned it over so much. When you look at the turnover numbers, they had 18 turnovers compared to just 9 for Dallas. So that was a huge part of this game and why they weren't able to really get it going. And it's interesting. You look at the box score and you say, "Hey, Miles, Mavericks started with all this size, but they got out rebounded by 8 and they gave up 5 more offensive rebounds." That's not all it's about. It's not all about the rebounds. It's about making things difficult for the Kings players. And I know DeMar DeRozan and Zach Levine, two of the great tough shot makers in the league, and they both did make tough shots in this game, but you know, when it's hard to get buckets on the offensive end, it makes it even harder for those guys to even play defense. And defense is not a strong suit of the Sacramento Kings, anyways. And the Kings just took full advantage. Another guy that had a great game was Brandon Williams off the bench at 17 points and 5 assists in 17 minutes. Got a lot of extra opportunity when, all those guys were injured for Dallas and we thought they would have to forfeit games. Brandon Williams was one of the consistent pieces at a very, good 30-game stretch there for the Mavericks to finish off the regular season. Got a standard contract just like 10 days ago and, is putting up this type of performance in a playing game. So shout out to Brandon Williams. Shout out to the Mavericks for just an impressive performance. I thought they would have a pretty good performance because of that size and that it would just throw the Kings off. And again, that is what happened. I mean, they forced the Kings to throw out some different lineups and different rotations than they normally would. But I was not expecting this to be a blowout really the entire second half. I mean, it was a 23-point lead at the half. Want to say the closest Sacramento cut it to was what, like 14 or something like that. Like it never really got cut down. Kind of similar to the Bulls at home as well. You know, I think the Kings did come out of the gates with good energy, but in that second quarter, when the Mavericks went to the bench and they were able to play that 9-10 man rotation, their depth, it really made a difference because Sacramento doesn't really have that depth. I mean, when you look at who they were able to play outside of their starting five, they played Trey Lyles, who's obviously an okay player, who's a good role player, he's a serviceable role player. The rookie Devin Carter, who had their highest, plus minus of any rotation player. I thought he was okay with 10 points and 4 rebounds. Valanciunas only gave them 10 minutes. Like it's just the depth obviously made a huge difference because the Mavericks were able to go to different lineups, and really everyone was able to step up and play well for the most part. And then for the few that couldn't really play well, they just didn't play them. Like Max Christie, Caleb Martin didn't really have anything for the Mavericks when they came into the game. All right, that's fine. We'll play Brandon Williams more. We'll play Daniel Gafford more off the bench. We'll play Clay, PJ, and Davis as a three-man front court. And then if we need to bring in Gafford or Lively, like they just have such a versatile team. And that's why I am a fan of this Mavericks roster, especially going into next season when they get Kyrie Irving back in like January, as Shams reported earlier on Tuesday or Wednesday, excuse me. But on the King side of things, season comes to an end, a very tumultuous season there in Sacramento. Of course, you bring in DeMar DeRozan. It's a bit inconsistent to start. You're playing well, but you're losing a lot of close games with this new big three of DeRozan, Sabonis, and De'Aaron Fox. As I get a Twitter notification, just want to make sure. Oh, there is a bomb about the Kings. The Sacramento Kings and general manager Monty McNair have agreed to part ways. Getting this live. Wow. Monty McNair fired from the Sacramento Kings. Wow, wow, wow. That is crazy. I guess that's not really crazy. I mean, I was just about to get into the season that they were having. So let's see. He was there. He ended up being there for 5 seasons. Firing their general manager um, after this type of season. So, anyways, they start the season with De'Aaron Fox, Zach Levine, or De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, and Domantas Sabonis as their big three. Um, and again, they're playing well to start, but losing a lot of close clutch games right at the end. And just never really got that consistency in the Western Conference. Late in December, they go on like a 4, 5, 6 game losing streak. They fire their head coach, Mike Brown. De'Aaron Fox requests a trade because of it. They end up getting Zach Levine. And, it just really was never able to come together. So I think that it's good that they could finally have a full offseason to kind of figure everything out because they have definitely a different roster than they had, even just a season ago at this point, relying on a lot of different players that weren't there, like a Harrison Barnes isn't there anymore. Obviously, Fox isn't there. Malik Monk has been injured the last 2 postseasons. Just a lot of different pieces there in Sacramento. So I think their offseason, it's just going to kind of be about continuity, really. They have a lot of guys coming back the next couple seasons. And I don't think it's a bad roster. I don't really know what moves they could really make to really get over the hump. I just think they need continuity and a chance to get better. I mean, they really didn't have that much time this season to all fully gel together, play together, and get better. So I think that's what they need to do, and maybe fire an act or not fire, hire a an actual head coach that's been there a little bit longer. I mean, Doug Christie did a decent job as the interim, or maybe you'll actually hire Doug Christie as the full time head coach. I think there are a lot of different ways that this Kings team can go. Overall, I'm not really too disappointed by the season that the Sacramento Kings had coming in with, I think there were some decent expectations for them with Fox, DeRozan, and Sabonis. But with the firing of Mike Brown, you lost so many close games, and then you have to trade Fox, and you end up getting Zach Levine back in the trade. But again, just a whole lot of new pieces and not a whole lot of continuity. So Kings season is over. The Mavericks move on. Both of the 10 seeds advance today. So Dallas will face the Memphis Grizzlies for the right to get to the 8th seed and play in the NBA playoffs. That will be Friday night at 9:30 on ESPN. Then once again, the first game of that, it'll be the Eastern Conference win to get in. The Miami Heat at the Atlanta Hawks for a chance to get in and play Cleveland. The winner of the Dallas Memphis game will face OKC in the first round of the playoffs. Both of those series will start on Sunday. But there's a look at both of the 9-10 play-in games from last night. A little disappointed that we didn't get any closer results, but hopefully we'll make up for it with some close games on Friday night. And then, of course, when the playoffs start, I already cannot wait to get into those series. Make sure you stay tuned in for the full Run in the Paint podcast where we're going to be on and predict every single first round series. So make sure you stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA postseason content. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.